We have behind the scenes of the Lightbox Story Hour. I'm Jim Sullivan with APH, and I'm really excited to present to you this narrative. We're going to start with introductions here momentarily. I'm going to cover learning objectives, and then I'm going to kick it over to Tristan, who's going to talk about the creation of the LED Mini-Lite Box, and then over to Adam, who's going to get into the details of creating or what went into the creation of the Lightbox Story Hour, which aired several weeks ago on the Excel Academy. We'll do questions and then we'll do a wrap up. So this is Tristan Pierce, partner in crime of Leanne and I's with APH. She's coming to us live and in stereo from Louisville, Kentucky. She is the Multiple Disabilities and Physical Education Project Leader. And from out on the left coast, or the west coast, and north of the border is Adam Wilton, who was part of the star of the Lightbox Story Hour, which again aired a couple of weeks ago. He is with the Provincial Resource Center for the Visually Impaired and is the program manager out there. So we are super glad that he's able to join. Actually, both of them are able to join us today. As far as the learning objectives go, there are 5 of them. So at the conclusion of the day, we are hopeful that you will be able to identify 3 reasons why APH redesigned the Mini-Lite Box. We are hopeful that you'll be able to describe 2 or more instructional strategies for using media on the Lightbox, that you'll be able to demonstrate ways to create Story Hour Lightbox materials at home, learn the rationale and connections to the expanded core curriculum that result from using the Lightbox as an access tool for literacy programming, and then finally, learning strategies for selecting stories that lend themselves well to the adaptation of the Lightbox. And so with that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to ask Tristan to start sharing. Take it away, Tristan, excuse me.
Okay. Hang on, there we go, and then there we go. Okay, does everyone hear me? I hope.
We can hear you and see you, but you have not shared your screen.
Oh, I thought I just did.
Not yet.
I did. So now we've got to go back, I guess. Whoa.
Okay, well, while you're getting started, I'll let you keep working on that. I'm going to send a poll and ask our group of participants right now while you work on getting that shared to know, we have a question for you. We want to know if your students have literacy goals. So the students that tend to work with our Lightbox materials, we're curious. Does your student have literacy goals? Now give a minute to allow everybody to put that information in.
Do you see it now, Leanne?
I do see it. You have to hit the start of it and it'll be ready to go. Right now we're seeing actually the slide deck. There you go. Okay, stay there for a second. Okay, everyone. Thank you for those that were able to access the poll. We know it doesn't work with every platform. I'm going to stop and let you see what you said. A majority of you actually have students with literacy goals, 78%. That is great news, good to hear. So 78% have literacy goals. Okay, Tristan, take it away.
Thank you, Leanne. I just take that off there. Okay. Just to let everyone know, I have a tendency to kind of get excited and I talk really, really fast. So if at any time I'm like, you just cannot comprehend me because I'm speeding, then please let us know and I'll try to pull myself back if I can, okay? Well, I guess I have to use my finger on my touch screen. My keys are not using to advance this. Okay, so this is the LED Mini-Lite Box and it is a person-centered light box. Okay, and so why did APH create a new light box when we had a perfectly good working Mini-Lite Box, which people loved? And one of the reasons is that the fluorescent tubes in it became obsolete, and as consumers sent them in to be repaired and updated, we could no longer repair them. So we knew we needed another option. And plus, we wanted to support the US government's initiative to phase out the use of fluorescent tube light bulbs. Now, another reason, of course, for a person-centered light box is because of the need. And I'm going to tell you that the quote I have here on the screen about most of their students having low cognitive abilities and hands that cannot handle and manipulate objects, body posture that's challenging. This is from, I'm going to say 2000 and maybe 15 survey that we took. So it wasn't like, oh, this just happened, you know. I think as far back as our 2001 multiple disability surveys, we had people commenting like this. So we knew there was a need, okay? But we also had a submission from a teacher. I could not see if Nick Hatfield from Minnesota, the names were coming in so fast. I don't know if Nick is on here or not. But he had submitted to us a product submission form for APH to create a universally designed stand that would hold our mini light box.
And he is here.
Nick is here. Okay, so for 2 years, I researched the potential of APH to do that. But in talking to all the companies who develop stands, I realized that APH did not want to get into the stand business. It's a very specialized industry, and I do not believe, and APH did not believe, that we could ever develop a stand that would be any cost efficient compared to what's out there on the commercial market right now. So again, this coincided with the government wanting to get the stoppage of fluorescent tubes. So we thought, why not develop a new light box that could work on existing stands out in the market. So that was one of the things that moved us along here. So as you can see in this next slide, this little girl, she is in a reclining wheelchair using APH's Tangle Toy, and you see where her natural line of vision is. So when using a traditional light box on a table or a desk, a student like her, just mentally, physically, her performance, nothing is going to work when she's having to try to force to see downward, when that is not the way she spends most of her day, okay? So if she has a person-centered light box, she's using less strength, she's not so exhausted, she's alleviated her stress. So this here, to me, is just a perfect photo to show why we need a light box up there. So here, again, is showing proper physical positioning and why it's so important. So if you look at the photo on the lower, that's my left, I think I established that that's also your left, that when she first gets put in this prone position on like this bean bag, her head is literally resting on the light box. But she has attended to what's on that light box, and there is a green swirly mat on that light box. So if you go up to the next photo, say on the upper right, you can see she's lifted her head a couple inches off of that light box. And then in our larger photo, you can see that she is actually supporting herself. She is using her strength to get her back up, her neck up, and she is attending to that light box. So this here is just a great physical exercise for her as well, to be able to do this part of her day. So now I just want to first introduce you to the new LED Mini. Okay, this is the way you will see it when you open your box. It comes with the exact same stand that Tom Pope designed many, many years ago for the large yellow light box that we have. We also use that same stand on both the read-write stands that we have. So it will come just like this when you get out of the box. The photo on the left can show you, you can see the arm brackets where you would have 3 positions that you could put that stand into. But that's great for many of the students who do use it on a tabletop or a desktop. that is fine for them. But for those other kids, what you're going to have to do is you just unscrew that stand off the back of it, and you see that we have these 8 holes that are built into the design. These holes are designed to accept VESA plates from various mounts that we have. Well, APH does not have them. They're on the commercial market. Okay, APH does not sell stands. Okay, so this is our first one. This is the RAM mount. Now it's only a couple inches higher, maybe 6 inches higher than if you were using your light box on the table. But what's great about this one is the photo on the far right, that is showing that mount attached to a dry erase board. And these RAM mounts are designed to be used in automobiles or vehicles, vans, carrying learners who may be in wheelchairs and stuff. So it's designed to withstand, like your car may be traveling over a couple potholes or something. It adheres to the glass very well. What I have learned is if you have a certain area in your classroom, and I saw this, I know in one of the schools I went in Minneapolis with Nick, that there was this little room we went into, and that's where I guess all the light box activities were done, at least with this particular student at that school. And I thought, you know, if you do have a designated area in your school where you do light box activities so that you can lower the lights and it doesn't bother the other kids and stuff, if you could get a sheet of plexiglass and adhere it to the walls through the studs of the wall, okay, you would then have an area that you could just mount this RAM mount onto it, and you could mark on that plexiglass that this is the location that, you know, Jesse needs it, and this is the location that Cindy needs it. And then every day when you went in, you could just plop that mount on your plexiglass and use it. Now, I do want to say, don't leave your light box hanging on there overnight. When you're done, release. It has little switches, little handles. You just switch them, and the suction cup comes off. Don't leave them overnight. I made the mistake of doing that here at APH, and Louisville had this massive drop of bariatric pressure. The humidity went crazy, and when I came in, my light box was on the other side of the room because the air change was really drastic overnight. So always remove it when you're done, but you can tug and tug on it once you've got it on there and it's not going to move. So this is one option. Our next option is the Rehadapt mount. This is a German-made mount. This is their clamp-on mount. And as the photos show, you can use it on a variety of tables that we have here. We have a close-up on the back that just shows, if you can just, if you see my cursor there, just pull that little knob out, and this here is the back of the light box with the VESA plate screwed to it. It'll just slip right off, very easy. One thing I really like about this Rehadapt mount is this little feature right here. So when it's on the tables over there on the left, this little triangle is up in here, so you have 2 flat surfaces for gripping. But say you have a child with a gait trainer or a wheelchair that's got tubing, you can pop that out and this will help you grip onto the tubing, okay? So the teachers in field testing, they liked the ease of use with the Rehadapt. They thought it was very easy to set up, and so that's a real benefit for it. Okay. And now this is what I call the Cadillac of all the mounts. This is Blue Sky Design. It is the mountain mover. It's made in Minnesota, so it's American made. And again, it goes on our tabletop without any problem. But this one is designed with a shoulder, an elbow, and a wrist. And I don't know if you can see close enough, but there are little teeth in here. So you can lock it in position for wherever the child needs it. But say you're doing an activity and you do need to move it some, you just press down on the white paddle and it releases the lock on the shoulder and the elbow. And then if you press this black paddle here, this will spin, the wrist will spin, and you can move the light box whichever way you want. Now, if you need to tilt it back more or pull it forward more, you just push back and forth on this, and this will slide up and down. So it's very easy to use. Now, if you ask, why these 3 mounts, it comes down to weight. Yes, this new light box only weighs 4 pounds, but still 4 pounds is a lot of weight on a lot of mounts that are out there. Like, I know modular tubing is very, very popular. Modular tubing will not support this, okay? Plus, when you have to think about if you put your items on the light box, particularly the APH spinner, that's going to add additional weight. We know that these 3 mounts will take the weight of the LED Mini-Lite Box. There may be other mounts out there that we don't know about, but these were the ones we were able to find. So, so now I'm going to show you, I don't know if you're all familiar with the light box ledge with Dyson. We now have a ledge for both the large light box and the mini light box. So on the left, I'm showing you a close-up of how that ledge just slides right in, just like the overlays do from the light box materials. It's the same size. This ledge fits on both the original light box, if you still have that, the original mini light box, if you have that, and then it fits on this new light box. And it comes with a sheet of Dyson. APH also sells the Dyson separately because we know teachers like it and that they would like to use it on other items that they have. So on the left here, I am just showing a close-up, so how you see how it works, and you see that there is one of the little plexiglass squares from the light box materials just resting on that ledge. Now the photo on the right is a little boy who you can't see the ledge. It is on there, but this photo, it kind of just disperses in the light. But he's got the Dyson on that ledge. And so he's using the Bright Shape Knob Puzzle Kit. I have the hardest time with that name. Bright Shapes Knob Puzzle Kit. And as you can see, they look like they're just floating in air. How are they staying on that vertical surface? This little boy has pressed them against the Dyson that's on there. So that Dyson, I think, is going to be a big hit. So some of our instructional strategies, you probably have used all of these before. I'm just showing you them on the new LED Mini-Lite Box. We're pairing look and touch. And the little boy is sitting there with the APH spinner, and he knows that if he touches that spinner and moves it, those green and black swirls will move as well. This is teaching him cause and effect, which every child needs to learn cause and effect using their own body before they're ever handed a switch to start creating cause and effect. And the little kiddo on the right is using a ledge. He's got a light box swirly mat on there, resting on it. And he is also using a Bright Shapes knob puzzle piece, and he's using it as a tool to push the gel around inside the swirly mat. Okay, here we're maintaining visual attention on a task for increasing amounts of time, and we're using high contrast colors, of course, and like Adam is going to be showing you later, using stories with hands-on activities. So I know this little girl right here, when I took this photo, her teacher was having her identify different things on this light box material overlay. Like, I know she asked her things like, show me all the blue items in the picture, show me all the animals in the picture, you know, show me all the vehicles that move in the picture. And then our little user here on the right, he has different color light box material plexiglass cylinders resting on the ledge. There's a blue one and a green one. He also has a light box material bowl, and he has the green one. So his task there is, he's got the green bowl, so he has to find all the green cylinders and place them in his bowl. So that's using, you know, those hands-on activities. Okay, here are preferred colors, particularly for kids with CVI and stuff. So, you know, start off with a preferred color, gradually add novel colors one at a time until you can build a complex activity there. You can then use that same one again, you know, point to all the blue triangles or whatever. Okay, color perception, we can match color to picture, choose one color from an array, pair colors to pictures. So again, I've taken the light box materials picture of the apple, And on the ledge, I have rested a blue cube, a red, a yellow, and a green cube. And so the child would have to select the color that matches the apple there. On the next one, it's kind of like, okay, we have an apple up and a banana up, and the child is given 2 cubes, and the child has to place the correct color cube under the matching picture. And don't you just love how if you're using this LED Mini-Lite Box in a darkened area, that the black light box just kind of disappears? I really like that. So here you can hang items from this to encourage reaching. So here I've taken the APH Tangle toy, and I've taken about maybe 2 or 3 of the black segments to make the top, and they're strung through the handle on the LED Mini-Lite Box, so the black just fades away into the black. And then I've alternated red, yellow, red, yellow, red, yellow, and the light comes through those. And this is great for those kids, again, in those wheelchairs who need to be able to manipulate things and, again, cause and effect movement with their hands and stuff, but also getting some exercise there. And they don't have to worry about the Tangle toy falling off of their wheelchair. On the right here, we're using the APH grid. And the grid is held on because this light box is completely vertical here. So I just took large rubber bands that you get from the office supply, and I looped them through the grid. And they're wrapped around the back. I don't know if you remember that back photo I showed you of the light box, but it has these pretty large rubber feet on it. And I just wrapped the rubber bands around those feet, and that helps it stay on the light box. I mean, it's resting on the ledge, but still this helps keep that ledge on so the child can manipulate all of these plexiglass cylinders. And here we're doing a sequencing on the bottom. We have yellow, red, blue, yellow, and the student now has to accurately put the correct colors in position. Now this is one of my favorites, and I got this idea from watching Nick Hadfield in Minnesota with the kids up there. And again, I love this because the black disappears into the night. Now you may not be able to see this, but I am standing right next to that light box. I am wearing all black, and I even have long elbow-length black gloves that I inherited from my grandmother. So here's a great way to increase visual efficiency by practicing like tracking an activity. So here you can position the item in the preferred viewing area, then unlock that elbow on the mountain mover. This is the mountain mover. Unlock that elbow on it, and you can then pull it across and see if the child will then track it along with you. I just thought that was so cool. And then when I saw Adam's last webinar, and he was talking about going on a bear hunt, and he's like, we got to walk through the grass. And I thought, oh, he could like move this along as they're walking through the grass, or move it along as they go hunting for the bear. And then when they have to go back home, they hit it the other direction and it goes back again. So I was all excited when I saw Adam a couple weeks ago. So now let's talk about, as we get ready to segue into Adam's section on this, creating stories. So I hope you all know about the Tactile Graphics Image Library. You can access it through our website. It's completely free. And what I show here on the right is I just went in and I downloaded the birthday artwork from the Digital Light Box artwork. I don't know, maybe some of you have the Digital Light Box artwork. It's a product APH sells. But we also have all that artwork downloaded on the Tactile Graphics Image Library, so you can access it. So let's just say here you wanted to create a personalized story for a child who was celebrating their birthday. So you could get this artwork, and you could create artwork for your light box and create a story about that student. So here I'm going to show you one way I did it. This, I've taken an airplane from the Digital Light Box artwork. I just downloaded it off the Tactile Graphics Image Library. I cut it out. I don't know, Leanne, do they see me in the corner at all?
They can.
They can? Okay, so here's my little airplane that I cut out, okay? Then in the next sheet, you see that it's the cutout image. Then what I did is I laid it on top of a piece of foam, And with my X-Acto knife, I cut out the airplane, okay? Then I just taped a piece of orange tissue paper. It looks much brighter in my here. I don't know why my photograph made the blue so ugly, but I just taped orange tissue paper to it, then took a thick black magic marker and marked in the details of the airplane. And the far right photo is, it is on the LED Mini-Lite Box. I've lowered the lights and turned it on, and again, it's completely black. So if you used that technique I showed on the previous slide about releasing the elbow and the shoulder on the mountain mover, your airplane could actually go flying through the sky. So I just thought that was so many options with that there. So at that point, the LED Mini-Lite Box is now available. There is your catalog number, 1-08654-00. I hope I did not go too fast, but I know I need to, I'm finishing right on time for Adam. Fantastic. So, and there will be questions at the very end. Is that right, Leanne?
There is, though. Can you give me a quick rundown of the estimated costs of those 3 mounts?
Okay, the RAM mount that I showed, you buy all 3 of those components, the suction cup section, the 9-inch double socket arm, and then the VESA plate. Those 3 combined were only about $100. Yeah, so it's like I said, it doesn't give you all the bells and whistles the other ones do. It's a much more limited use, but if your student doesn't need the bells and whistles, that's a dynamite price, okay?
Okay, and one more. Is it something that holds a charge so it doesn't need to be plugged in?
The LED Mini?
Yes.
Okay, the LED Mini has battery packs, lithium battery packs in it, side by side, so that's why it's thin enough. And yes, you do have to plug it in to recharge it, and you need to plug it in as soon as you get it. Don't like pull it out of the box and turn it on. There is a federal law against shipping and going on airplanes with fully charged lithium batteries, so it does not come to you fully charged. So please, please charge it before you start using it. If you use it at the maximum brightness level, it will last about 6 to 8 hours. If you use it on like a medium brightness level, turn the dimmer switch down, and I believe it'll last for close to 15 hours before it has to be recharged.
If you will stop sharing your screen so Adam can take over, that would be great.
Okay, but one thing I need to say is that RAM mount that I said was $100, that's the bottom price. Those other 2 are much, much more expensive, so don't think you will get them for $100.
Okay, yeah.
So, okay.
And Adam, take it away.
Okay, I am just going to share my screen with everyone. And then start my presentation. Fabulous. Now, before I get started though, Tristan, thank you so much. And just as a little thank you, I brought back the long grass from the story hour here.
All right, I loved that.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adam Wilton, and I'm the Program Manager of the Provincial Resource Center for the Visually Impaired here in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And so I'm delighted to be with you today. After the Lightbox Story Hour that we ran through the Excel Academy a few weeks ago, there were some questions on kind of what was not only the processes, but the thought process as well behind creating the Story Hour. And so I'm delighted to be with you all today to share a little bit more details around that. So here's what we're going to get into today. We're going to be primarily focused on designing literacy-focused Lightbox programming, and specifically looking at the Lightbox as a tool for access, and then selecting and creating the actual content. On the right side here, you will see the aftermath of the Lightbox Story Hour. This is what it looked like. This is what my office looked like afterwards. And so there's caveat that I think I might have mentioned in the presentation, but I'll mention again here. Lightbox stories are a team sport. Typically, as when I would do this as an itinerant teacher of students with visual impairments, I would have myself and a paraprofessional or a peer, so that we could swap materials back and forth and move them off and prepare the next one. And so when we're in this time of isolation, this is what it looked like at the end. And I don't know if it came through on the presentation, but you also might want to not use Scotch tape because I was finding I was getting things stuck to my hands. All right, let's get into it. So I first want to start with the mindset here, and I apologize to Dr. Wormsley. These are not her exact words, but again, the Getting in Touch with Literacy conference back in 2011 was a long time ago, and so this is my remembering of her her keynote address at that conference. But something that she mentioned there has really stuck with me over the years, and the essence of it was just this: that how we think and communicate about our students with others, whether it's peers or other members of the educational team, impact how we and others interact with the student. So if we think of the student as a reader, we'll interact with them as a reader. And I have found that this is also a very implicit process. And so, you know, this is the distinction between working with a student who, let's say, has a toileting or a feeding routine at school. Well, I've just noticed that when the team, the paraprofessionals, other educators who are working with the student, when they see the student as a reader and someone for whom literacy development is possible and valuable, that changes how they interact with that student. And there's more talk, there's more narrative. And so I use Lightbox stories as a way of building that engagement. All right. So this is a slide actually from the Lightbox Story Hour. Leanne gave me some very good advice before I started. She said, Adam, get right to the student-focused content, because they had heard from some students that it sounded like the news. And so not wanting to kind of Walter Cronkite the situation, I skipped through a lot of these slides. But when I'm designing Lightbox stories, I'm not necessarily designing with any one specific ocular or neurologically based condition in mind. I know that traditionally Lightboxes are associated with students with cortical or cerebral visual impairment. But when I'm working on my Lightbox stories, I'm not necessarily thinking of any one population. I'm more thinking of the individual student and their particular sensory profile. And the other piece that at the outset of that presentation that I wanted to encourage parents and caregivers to look at is the way that the Lightbox story differs from their traditional print storybook on color, contrast, size, and movement. And so we're going to get into that a little bit more deeply in my slides here today. Okay, so first off, using the Lightbox as a tool for access, as an access tool. All right, so these advantages won't be unfamiliar to the TVIs in the audience. One of the main advantage of a Lightbox is that it's easily adjusted to the student's sensory profile in terms of positioning, in terms of luminosity, in terms of the working distance that the student requires based on their acuity, and also how eminently adaptable the visual targets are. We can make them bigger, we can make them bolder, better contrast, more colorful, add movement in there. And so these are true of however we're using the Lightbox. And so whether we're using it for literacy goals or whether it's for more sensory efficiency type goals for other areas of the expanded core curriculum, these are some common ways that, you know, Lightboxes have an advantage over more standard, let's say, print based materials, or even some digital materials as well, which may not be as changeable or as adaptable as a Lightbox. Let's talk about it specifically though in terms of literacy. So Lightbox is a tool for access to literacy. So a main advantage of the Lightbox is that it sets a tangible workspace for the learner, one that's both through touch and through vision. One of the challenges that I find work with sharing print books with students is, one, we're relying on directional lighting to illuminate that print book. And then also, there may not be a good distinction for the student in terms of depth between the storybook and the background against which the book is being shown to the student. The Lightbox sets a really clear, tangible workspace. It allows for individualized pacing and the individualized introduction of story elements. If we're using a traditional book, whether that be hard copy or, let's say, an EPUB format, when we turn the page, all of the details intended by the author and the illustrator are right there. Whereas if we have a Lightbox, we can control the complexity of that display and have only some salient story elements that we feel are important for the students' engagement, to support the students' engagement. I also find that using Lightboxes for stories encourages a controlled and thoughtful sensory environment on the part of the educational team. And what I mean by that is that when we have the Lightbox, we're thinking of, okay, what is the ambient light? What about the sounds? What about the extraneous movement? And so when you can provide a Lightbox and some related activities, literacy-focused activities to a team, I've just found in my experience that helps to drive conversation and consideration around the sensory environment that we're kind of situating the student in to engage with these materials. And related to that, it provides a focal point for literacy programming for the educational team. You know, for many of our students with multiple exceptionalities, educational teams are hungry for new activities to do with the student that aren't, let's say, just chilling out and watching YouTube. And so I found that the Lightbox is a nice rallying point for programming for teams. Now, the disadvantage of using the Lightbox as a tool for literacy access is that it is labor intensive. Most Lightbox stories are designed from scratch. And I'm not, going to beat around the bush. It's a lot of work. You've got to create. You've not only got to go through the process to create the materials. I mean, it was easy enough for me to create the grass in the bear hunt story because this is just a gel overlay that I've cut. But in other situations, let's say, and I'm just gonna grab this down here. I didn't use this in the story, but here's a doghouse on a transparency that I had to scan, remove the background, and then print onto a transparency. So it can be somewhat labor intensive. All right, let's move on to the next slide. So that segues us into selecting and creating content for your Lightbox stories. First, starting with a principle that comes from intervention for our students who are deafblind, do with, not for. So in this case, what I'm looking to do is to read with and not to. So I'm automatically thinking of stories that can somehow involve the learner, as opposed to the learner being a more passive observer of a Lightbox story. Remember, the Lightbox story is not dinner theater for your student, right? They're not going to just be sitting there. We want to build in opportunities for them to be engaged in the story process. Okay, so let's start with selecting books and the story plot. So when adapting for the Lightbox, consider stories that have a clear beginning, middle, and end. This might seem kind of obvious when we're looking at storybooks intended for students in the primary, elementary, and maybe late elementary years. But yeah, having a clear beginning, middle, and end is helpful not only for the student in terms of following along in the sequence of events in the story, but it's also helpful for you as well in terms of the construction process. Related to what I had on the previous slide, select stories that put the reader in an active role. And if the story doesn't directly, if the narrator or the characters in the story don't directly speak to the reader, then you can adapt the story to make the student a character or a participant themselves. So when I did, one of the reasons I chose going on a bear hunt for my first story hour was simply because that story speaks right to the reader and puts the reader into the story. You know, I think I haven't thought of adapting this, but you know, another example would be some of Mo Willems' books, of the pigeon books. You know, Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. That speaks right to the reader. And the other piece that I find helpful is that a story that unfolds across a series of settings. So like a going on a journey or searching for something. This also helps to integrate movement. So your story's not happening. You're not just interchanging characters on a static background. You've got different settings. And so, you know, in Bear Hunt, we were going through the tall grass, and then in another part, we were following we were going along the river. And of course, I don't have my other black overlay here that I used in the story. And then the other consideration for the kind of the sequence, the plot sequence of the story, is that if you've got something that's unfolding across kind of a very, very clear series of events in the story, that maps on to a student's understanding of first, next, finished, if they're using, let's say, an object calendar or a schedule. Okay, let's talk about story setting. I like to choose stories that have a series of discernible settings with different characteristics, features. So what I mean by this is that, you know, I'm not necessarily going to change I'm going to select a story that takes place in a snowy schoolyard, and the entire story takes place in the schoolyard. You know, I'm thinking just, and this is a bit of a dated reference, but try not to pick stories that are like an episode of the Flintstones, you know, where the background just kind of rotates and stays the same while the characters are moving along. I also, in terms of setting, would select stories where the characters are interacting with or referring to the setting, so that you're not introducing elements onto the light box that are just there for either decoration or for staging, that they have some importance to the story. And setting elements, you know, can be represented by simple images or icons, and are probably best represented actually through simple images and icons. So here I've got cartoon snowflakes for a snowy day scene, rather than a more complex setup where I've got snow drifts and you know, maybe some smaller snowflakes falling. In this situation, in this instance, I've got kind of representative images, because in this case, I'm able to control the complexity, size, and contrast and color, really, of these elements, as opposed to a more kind of traditionally laid out setting. All right, story characters. So I like to select stories that are where all the characters are accounted for on the display, so that I'm not referring to characters that are off scene or that we never see. And so in Bear Hunt, of course, everybody's on there. With that said, I do like to select stories where there's relatively few characters, just so that I'm not having to flip in and have a student only see one character once. Because, you know, we do know that there are some students who will need those repeated presentations to get, you know, more familiar, or to help them to, you know, engage their functional vision to attend to that character. And so like to have those characters either reappear or stay consistent across the story. And by selecting stories that are a journey, or that have that sequence of events, then you've got some consistent characters who are going along throughout. So yeah, so kind of just already went over that point, that consistency in presence and appearance. And so, of course, in Bear Hunt, you've got this little little character here who was the student or was the reader. And then you've got the bear. And not necessarily to scale. I mean, scale is an important cue. It usually carries, you know, semantically rich meaning in the story. With that said, though, scale with the light box is not always possible, nor is it practical. So I think of, for example, the example I've given you here to consider is Clifford the Big Red Dog. Well, if I did Clifford to scale on a light box, we'd have a big Clifford, and then we'd have little Emily Ann and all of Clifford's dog friends, and you know, maybe Clifford's house. And so playing with scale here is important, because we're trying to find that balance between the kind of the integrity of the story and what we know about the student's sensory profile and what we know about their sensory efficiency goals related to the light box. Okay, I've purposely left a fair bit of time for questions. So I've only got a couple more slides to go through here. So my broader takeaway here is that we're design and delivering with comprehension in mind, but if we get engagement, that's absolutely thrilling. And the reason that I really wanted to highlight that we're designing and delivering for comprehension, because if we're expecting that students are going to understand and follow elements or the entire story, then it takes on it takes on a core literacy feel, as opposed to designing exclusively for engagement. And then we might be creating more materials that are aligned with the student's sensory efficiency goals, and maybe not, maybe potentially losing focus on the literacy component, that this is a story. You know, we're building value into narratives. And students are kind of enjoying and appreciating that process. Also, the piece with engagement as well. Let's just assume your student does not comprehend the plot of the story, but really gets a lot out of just that engagement with another adult or some peers, and then that's great too. That's that social interaction skill component. And so while I'm, like I said, if I'm designing and delivering with comprehension in mind, but I'd be absolutely thrilled if I get good engagement on the part of the learner. Okay, so shameless plug for next week. Friday, we are doing another Lightbox Story Hour. I am working on some new stories as we speak. Just to, a question that I get asked, that I had quite a bit, that I had a few people ask from at the outset of the previous one: do students need their own light box? Absolutely not. I've got a bunch of light boxes here, and it's just, you know, the student just needs to be able to be positioned in such a way that's kind of consistent with their best with their best engagement given their sensory profile. And the other piece I wanted to mention, and I'm sorry I haven't been looking at the comments, so while I've been presenting, so I don't know if I have any questions.
You do. I was waiting until you had a moment. If you want to stop sharing your screen and
sure,
so they see
absolutely.
you, I think that would be better.
I think I've just got my email and my Twitter, just ways to get at me if you have any questions or want to chat further off here. So I will stop. I'll stop sharing.
Okay, then they get to
Great.
see you. Okay,
Yeah.
So we had a couple questions. One was, do you ever use real objects connected to the story and present them on the light box?
I do, although I will say that I'm careful when I use real objects, because some real objects don't lend themselves well to backlighting. Okay. And so then from the student's perspective, you might only be getting a shadow outline. And if I've got some semantically rich content on that material, or there's some detail to that real material, then I would think about whether I need to maybe create a transparency, or maybe I need to do like a hybrid where the students holding real objects, but then also shifting their attention to the light box and the real object. But that would depend entirely on your students, on your understanding of the student's sensory profile in terms of whether they're going to be able to do that effectively in terms of switching their, switching their gaze and their overall attention between the light box and the tangible material. If they're
Did you
holding onto it.
attach those pictures to Lightbox? Now I know we have now the clear Dyson, which is one way, but what were you using?
I've been putting a lot of thought into that, Leanne, because in the Lightbox story hour, the first one, I was just using Scotch tape because the sticky tack, unfortunately, shows up on the Lightbox. I was using Scotch tape, but then it was getting stuck to my hands. And so I was worried the kids were going to think it was a thunderstorm because I was trying to shake the transparencies off my hands. And so I was worried that they were, oh, there's a thunderstorm that's popped up in this story. Yeah, I'm still working on that. I think what I might do still use is clear tape, but maybe in more predictable locations on each overlay so that I don't touch them inadvertently and get them stuck to my hands. The other piece to mention here is that I normally wouldn't do, this is a team sport. I wouldn't do this with one person usually. This would usually be a team effort back and forth. So
we were just in quarantine times, so therefore Lightbox Story Hour is one person.
I'm a one-man band in quarantine times. That's right.
Okay. Now, do you have a list of books that you have used or ones that you would be willing to recommend that we could send out?
Yeah, why don't I've got a handout that corresponds with the PowerPoint. Why don't I throw some suggested titles into that?
That would be great.
Because I do have some that I've done over the years, some more successfully than others. And so the more successful ones are what informed my suggestions in those slides. But I'm happy to send out the ones that I've done successfully or that have worked well.
So what software are you using to remove those backgrounds such as the doghouse?
Oh yeah, so there's a lot of different ways you can do this. This is not specific to one particular piece of software. Just because it's ubiquitous and I've got it, I use a little application that's built into Windows 10 called Paint 3D. And it's got the exact name escapes me, but it's like a magic snipping tool. There's nothing really magic about it. It's just a snipping tool. And so you'll bring an image in there, and then it will try to predict based on the lines in the image what you want to pull out, and then you can just do a little. You can kind of do a bit of work around the edges to make sure that you're getting what you want to remove, and then to put on a transparency or to do what you need to do to get that figure removed from the ground. So I use Paint 3D.
Okay, and then one person was saying they have too much light coming through when they're presenting. Is there a suggestion for cutting out those black frames? Yeah,
so I mean, you can just use cardboard with an X-Acto knife. I've used that in the past. Sometimes what I like to do, if possible, is I like to incorporate the standard overlays that I get in the Lightbox level 1 kit. Because then that way, those are really those are cut out quite cleanly. So like if, for example, the students, if the story's on like a winding path, well then I'll use that one that's, the one that's kind of like the jagged one. Or if a character is hopping across a pond on lily pads, well then I might use the overlay that has the circles cut out and then have green lily pads underneath each of those circle cutouts where the character is jumping along. But yeah, you can use those with cardboard. The other thing, with cardboard cutout, the other piece that I will sometimes consider is if I'm getting too much white light through the light box, I might do the entire presentation with the yellow overlay on there. Just something that's not going to cut out too much light, but also isn't necessarily going to distort the colors of the transparencies too much. So, for example, if I'm using the yellow overlay, the colors of my house here aren't going to be, significantly distorted or changed. Although interesting, the little character in the Lightbox Story Hour is actually purple, but it showed up as blue on the camera. So these are quarantine time considerations, because obviously you're not going to be, for the most part, sharing these with students via camera, live and in person.
Well, I am going to hold off on the rest of the questions. We can possibly do that after the hour. Jim, I am going to turn it over to you for those last little pieces of information.
Super, and I think I am safe because the chat is just blowing up to Adam and Tristan. I think everybody out there, all 300 and some people or 400 some people, would love to scream right now, what a phenomenal job that the two of you did with this and how excited everybody is about this. So just briefly, I believe I'm sharing my screen at the moment. Is that correct, Leanne?
No, it's just you.
Just me? Ooh.
Just you.
Ooh, that's scary.
Now I'm going to see your screen. There you go.
Yeah. All right. So the LED light box is priced at $499, and currently we have 127 of them in stock. The LED Mini-Lite Box is priced at $259, and currently there are 304 of them in stock. If you would like to contact APH, you can reach out to sales@aph.org or the phone number 800-223-1839. And with that, I'll stop sharing and kick it back to you guys to close things out.
So I am going to say thank you all to everyone for joining us today. Thank you to Tristan and Adam for being our wonderful presenters. And we hope you join us again.